Can I roll? Okay,
Yeah.
can I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Ritchie, that the special meeting of council of the Township of Springwater of April 26, 2021 come to order at 6:31 p.m. All those in favor? It's carried. Due to COVID, council is taking the necessary steps to limit in-person meetings. So we are streaming this with council and staff and visitors, attendees. The meeting you can watch live on the township's website at www.springwater.ca. You can listen to the meeting from a telephone by calling 647-558-0588 and using the meeting ID 845-9785-1821 and the pound sign. This is available during the meeting, or if you're unable to and want to watch the live stream afterwards, you can review the meeting through the township's YouTube channel accessible on the website. Council, are there any pecuniary interests on the matters we're dealing with tonight? All right, seeing none, can I have a mover and seconder to call a public meeting to order, please? Councillor Ma and Councillor Cabral, that this public meeting of council held under section 17, 21, and 34 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 P13 as amended for the zoning bylaw amendment application ZB 2021-003 by Gary Bell of Skelton, Bromwell and Associates on behalf of White Owl Properties Limited and for the official plan amendment application and zoning bylaw amendment application OP 2017-003 and ZB 2017-010 by Kathy Cook be called to order at 6:33 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Can I have we're in the public meeting now and calling this to order. Can I have a mover and seconder to call this public meeting to order, please? Councillor Ma and Councillor Cabral, that this public meeting of council held under section 17, 21, and 34 of the Planning Act ZB 2021-003, White Owl Properties Limited, and OP 217-003, and ZB 217-010 Cook be called to order at 6:34 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. The purpose of the meeting. Welcome to this public meeting of Springwater Township Council held in compliance with section 17, 21, and 34 of the Planning Act to give the public an opportunity to express their views in regard to proposed amendments to the Township of Springwater official plan and zoning bylaw as amended. The first part of this meeting is to present the amendments. Following, the public will be given the opportunity to make an oral submission through the Zoom application. Any person wishing to make an oral submission must have notified the township prior to 8:30 a.m. this morning and must have been added to the commenters list. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Township of Springwater in respect of a proposed official plan and/or zoning bylaw amendment does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions to the Township of Springwater before the proposed official plan amendment is adopted and zoning bylaw amendments are passed, the local planning appeal tribunal may dismiss all or part of the appeal. All comments or questions should be addressed through myself as chair. Oral submissions will be included in this meeting minutes and form part of the public record, including the name and address of the speaker, as information collected under the Municipal Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act, and the minutes of the meeting will be posted on the township's website. First matter we're dealing with is ZB 2021-003 by White Owl Properties Limited of 2333, 2347, and 2365 and 2383 Cassell Drive in Springwater. I will now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates on which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 31st day of March 2021 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 6 properties in the township of Springwater within 120 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was also posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location that was visible from Castle Drive. The notice was also placed on the township website.
Has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of public meeting?
Correspondence has been received from the Ministry of Transportation in an email dated April 1st, 2021, as well as the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority in an email dated April 26, 2021. Details of these comments can be found attached to this evening's agenda.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie?
Yeah.
Could I just get you to mute your system there, please? Thank you. Okay, I will now call upon Gary Bell of Skelton, Bromwell and Associates to give a brief explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposal.
Good evening, Mayor Allen and Deputy Mayor Coughlin and Council. My name is Gary Bell. I'm a planner with Skelton, Bromwell Associates from Barrie. And I'm here with the application by White Owl Properties Limited and Miller Waste Systems for their property at Hillsdale. I observe that also online tonight is Adrian Claywig from Miller Waste Systems. So I'm going to share my screen now, Council, and I've got a presentation for you. Now you should be seeing a PowerPoint presentation. Would one of you wave your hands to confirm it's up in front of you, please? Very good, thank you. Council, this is a rezoning application of 233 Castle Drive at Hillsdale. The properties have been merged from the longer municipal address that was read out. The proposed rezoning is to take the property, which now has 3 zones on it, highway, commercial, and with exceptions, to a zone for the highway commercial exception zone to permit the proposed truck maintenance and operations center. Council, on screen now, you can hopefully see the map of the area. And this is Highway 400, Highway 93 running through to the north, and Hillsdale at the top of the map. The subject property is this slightly less, about 4 hectares at Castle Drive, right along Highway 400. Council, the proposed zoning bylaw is shown here on the side. The majority of the area in the crosshatch is to be rezoned commercial highway with an exception provision for both a use and provision on the yards. I'll explain later. One area of the property, which is an identified and surveyed wetland, provincially significant wetland, is proposed to be rezoned to environmental protection. I think it best, Council, if White Owl speak for themselves, and they submitted a letter to you, and that's as part of the record. So they were happy to announce that they've been awarded the contract by Simcoe County for the curbside waste pickup commencing this October. And this 4-hectare site is well suited geographically and with access to be the truck maintenance and operations center for the entire county contract. Council and public, no waste will be managed or stored at this site. Miller Waste Systems takes pride in our operating motto, go safely, go clean, or don't go at all. And in fact, they post that on their site for every driver leaving the property. Council, there have been up to 35 employees working on the combined properties. There will be an increase in employment from this site or truck drivers, mechanics, dispatchers, and administrative staff. White Owl expects that there will be over 150 employees working from this location. Just a few photographs. The building here in the upper corner is at the east end of the site, and it has been operated by Simcoe County. The building in the middle has been owned and operated by Miller Waste Systems. You can see their trucks here, and they have bins on site now, waste bins on site. The building on the right, the green building, was purchased by White Owl Properties recently, and it previously had been a tool and die business. So those are the properties that have been merged to become this truck maintenance and operations center. Council, the property is designated business park in the official plan, and it's right here. The business park designation means that space-extensive commercial and industrial uses, which may require outside storage, large amounts of vehicular parking are allowed. And without limiting the foregoing, uses such as transportation facilities, automotive and vehicle repair, and office buildings. Council, that very well describes White Owl and Miller's proposed use and expanded use of the site. Your application process and your requirements have involved a number of studies and investigations on the property. A planning justification report has been submitted, which deals with conformity and consistency with the official plan, the county official plan, and the provincial policy statement and growth plan for the Greenbelt. Also required and submitted was a stormwater management report for the operation. A traffic impact study was required and submitted to deal with Castle Drive and its intersection with Highway 93. And North-South Environmental has prepared the environmental impact study that's been submitted. Now, all of these have been submitted both to yourself and to the NVCA, the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. Council, in a little bit more detail, the zoning bylaw, the majority of the area is to be rezoned highway commercial exception, with the defined wetland as the EP area. And the exception, Council, would be that in addition to the permitted uses of the highway commercial zone, outdoor storage is permitted. Now I'll pause there. Outdoor storage was one of the uses anticipated by your official plan policy, but the zoning bylaw does not across the board permit it. So it's on a site-specific basis permitted here, would be permitted here. And the other provision is that notwithstanding any other provision of the bylaw, the parking and outside storage of motor vehicles, bins, and equipment is permitted in the front and exterior yards. And this was because of the particular nature of the site, and I'll explain that on the site plan. Council, the planning report goes through and it establishes conformity with your own official plan policies down the left, and it conforms with the permitted uses. This is a dry industry. Water is provided from wells on the site, not for industrial processing. Adequate parking is provided for the vehicles and trucks. There will be compliance with the zoning bylaw as proposed to be amended. And finally, your policy 1324. On this site, Council, any chemicals that are used for repair and maintenance of trucks are kept and used and disposed of in proper environmentally responsible means. There is no discharge of chemicals onto the site or environment. This is the site plan that has been submitted. The property along Castle Drive has an entrance at the west side leading to employee parking areas, several of them on site, and several truck parking areas. The trucks are parked here overnight as they're being readied for maintenance in one of the buildings on site. The stormwater management ponds that have been identified and required are shown here in the aquamarine color. The green color is grassed areas of the site, and the environmental protection zone, the actual wetland, is defined. And there's a fence to secure it. There's also an eastern entrance of the site, so there's traffic flowing through it. The very eastern portion of the site will be for bin storage, those waste bins that are taken out throughout the county. Council, in summary, the proposed zoning of this site for this expanded use is consistent with the provincial policy statement and the growth plan. It is in conformity with your official plan. It implements your official plan and supports economic development, and I'd say a rather significant increase in employment. The way that the site is both zoned and to be managed on the site plan and the development permit, the wetland is both protected and enhanced. Council, the next steps are that we complete the site plan circulation and responses. It's under technical review now by your staff and by NVCA and others. We anticipate, look forward to a staff report to you on the actual zoning bylaw amendment. There will be a site plan agreement with yourselves on the development, and there will be a development permit with the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. There will also be a land use and building permit required from the MTO. That was their comment to you, and we intend that. And there'll be an environmental compliance approval from the Ministry of Environment, Climate, and Parks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. I'll now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who have registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There are no commenters registered to make an oral submission in regards to this application.
Thank you. I'll turn to members of council. Do you have questions or comments regarding this application? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Mr. Bell. I may have missed it and I apologize if I did, but I do note that there was going to be some forms of maintenance and whatnot taking place on the site. I'm just curious to know if there's going to be any fuel availability for the fueling up of the vehicles on site.
Mr. Bell.
I see Mr. Claywake is here, and he is with Miller Waste Systems. He would give you the most accurate answer. So if I can ask the moderator to allow Adrian Claywake to respond, please.
Mr. Claywake.
Adrian, you have to be good.
Thank you, Mayor Allen and Council. Generally, our fleet is fueled by mini tankers that come into the site at night, and they'll fuel up all the trucks because it just doesn't make sense for each truck driver to go to a fueling station. So, with 120 waste trucks on this site, we'll likely have a mini tanker that fuels the trucks up each and every night.
Okay, thank you. What is the time frame for staffing up to 150 employees, Mr. Claywake?
We currently have our HR department, hiring truck mechanics and drivers right now.
So you're targeting to start they're hiring and starting now presently, or what's the time frame?
Our contract starts I believe it's November 1st with the County of Simcoe. Right. So we Waste Connections currently has a contract. So we're gearing up to, a lot of their drivers will be applying for positions at our company now. It's ongoing for sure. Like we don't wait till the last week to hire these people.
Right. And the trucks are being manufactured, and the expectation is their arrival will start when and be how frequent leading up to full capacity?
Their arrival started and they're being stored at the dealerships currently.
Okay. Okay. Council, other questions, comments? Okay, thank you for the presentation. So thank you to all who participated in the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and for showing interest in this matter. Certainly quite an operation that's going to be developing. All right, next we're moving on to OP 2017-003 and ZB 217-010 for K Cook at 2412 and 2415 Ronald Road. I will now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates on which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the first day of April 2021 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 29 properties in the township of Springwater within 120 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply, and was mailed on the sixth day of April 2021 to the assessed owners of 13 properties in the township of Springwater within 120 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was also posted at the assessed properties to which the proposed amendment applies at a location that was visible from Ronald Road. The notice was also placed on the township's website.
And has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of the public meeting?
Correspondence was received from the Ministry of Transportation in an email dated April 6, 2021, from Ron and Sharon Woods, residents at 1422 Ronald Road, in an email dated April 7, 2021, the Township of Springwater's Public Works Department in an email dated April 7, 2021, Donna Johnson, Alan Johnson, Lisa Tersingi, and Dennis Kozu, residents at 2433 and 2421 Ronald Road, in a letter received April 12th, 2021. Dennis Kozu, resident at 2421 Ronald Road, in a letter received April 14th, 2021. The Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority in an email dated April 14th, 2021. Valentino Tersingi and Amelia Tersingi, residents at 2421 Ronald Road, in a letter received April 15th, 2021. Karen Newell and Neil Bailey Hay, residents at 2432 Ronald Road, in a letter dated April 16th, 2021. Alan Johnson, resident at 2433 Ronald Road, in a letter dated April 22nd, 2021. Kristen Pechowski, with the County of Simcoe, in a letter dated April 22nd, 2021, and the Township of Springwater Building Department in an email dated April 26th, 2021. All submissions and comments can be viewed attached to this evening's agenda.
Thank you. I'll now call upon Deborah Ann Lisk, planner, to give a brief explanation of the purpose and effect of this proposal.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. So good evening, Mayor Allen, members of council, and members of the public. Tonight I'll be presenting on the applications for an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for two properties, which are located at 2412 and 2415 Ronald Road, and those are both located in the settlement area of Minising.
Planner Lisk?
Yeah.
Can you make your presentation full screen so that we don't have the next slide to make it bigger so we can see it, please?
Sure, just 1 second. See if I can figure that out. Is that better?
It's coming on. Yes, that is better. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So just on slide 2 now. So as stated, it's two subject properties located on Ronald Road, 2412, which is on the north side of Ronald Road, and 2415, which is on the south side of Ronald Road. So first I'll talk about the first property, 2412 Ronald Road. It's currently zoned institutional and designated institutional in the township's official plan. Property 2415 is residentially zoned and designated urban residential in the township's official plan. The purpose of these applications is to establish land uses on 2 separate parcels and facilitate on-site shared parking to alleviate parking deficiencies on the properties. I'm going to go into further details of each property on the next slides. So first, we're going to talk about 2412 Ronald Road. Here we see an aerial photo of the property. It was formerly a church property. The proposal, I'm going to go to the next slide there. The proposal is to redesignate from the institutional designation to a general commercial special policy, which would permit commercial studio uses such as art, music, dance, and martial arts, as well as a tattoo studio. The rezoning would be from an institutional zone to a general commercial exception zone, which would permit those commercial studio uses and a tattoo studio, as well as to recognize zoning deficiencies as a result of the existing building conversion to that commercial use. So as mentioned, it was formerly a church property. The proposal is all within the same building footprint of the former church. No additions are proposed at this time. And as you see from this image of the site plan, the former church property does take up the majority of the site, which outlines the parking deficiency on the property. Just below that site plan, you'll see, I can try to zoom in here. You'll see a floor plan of the existing former church property and the layout supplied by the applicant. So you'll see the art studio, the dance hall, as well as a stage, and then the martial arts located in the basement. So the next slide here just outlines the zoning bylaw deficiencies that would be proposed should this amendment go through. I'm not going to go through all of them right now, but I will draw your attention to the parking requirement. So as mentioned, there is a parking deficiency located at the former church property. The requirement for the proposed uses would be 8 spaces. Now there's only 1 space that is actually available on 2412 Ronald Road. The remaining other spaces would be located on the next property, which we'll be talking about next. So 2415 Ronald Road, we're looking at an aerial photo here. It's an existing single detached dwelling, which is just located across the street from the church property. The official plan amendment in rezoning for this property would redesignate the property from an urban residential designation to a general commercial special policy, which would permit an art gallery studio with a residential use, as well as a parking lot that would facilitate shared parking arrangements for both of the properties. The rezoning would be from a residential 1 zone to a general commercial exception zone, which would permit specifically the art gallery studio with a residential use, and to permit the parking lot for both commercial uses. And again, it would recognize a number of zoning bylaw deficiencies, which will be described in the next slide. So just a little context, this is the site layout provided by the applicant, which shows the proposed parking plan, which is located at the front half of the property, so in front of the house there. And again, these are the zoning bylaw deficiencies that would be mentioned through this rezoning. And I'm going to draw your attention again to the parking. The actual parking requirement for the uses on this specific property would be, 5 spaces for the commercial and 2 spaces for the residential. And again, all of those would be located on property as well as the spaces for the adjacent use. The last slide here is just an illustration of the floor plan for the existing residential use with the art gallery and studio, and as well as the residential use above. So that concludes my portion of the presentation tonight. As mentioned, tonight is the public meeting for these applications. No recommendation by staff has been provided at this time. Tonight, we're here to gather comments and to answer questions on the applications and give the applicant an opportunity to address some of those comments and concerns that have come out. And then staff would be providing a recommendation report at a later meeting date once the applicant has had a chance to address some of those concerns. So I'm going to pass that over to the applicant, Kathy Cook, now. She wants to add any additional information and to answer some of the concerns that have been brought forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cook,
Hello, can
Hello.
you see me?
we can see you and we can hear you, yes?
Okay, wonderful. This has been about a 5-year journey so far. We have renovated this lovely, I don't know if you can see, part of the building behind me is a beautiful restored historical building, formerly known as St. Peter's Anglican Church, left to disrepair. It was for sale for about 6 years, and it was just sort of forgotten about. And my husband and I lovingly restored it into, when I first purchased it, the intent was a community center where dancing and music and art and creative outlet for teaching art classes, and a much needed kind of fulfilling place for creative growth in our community. When I applied for the zoning change, I was informed that I didn't have the required parking, and then forwarded to all of my local neighbors, if they were ever going to sell their property, that this is what I need to allow this business to open, was a parking site. So a couple of years went by and the house across the road became available. And so you've seen the plan for, I think would be a beautifully handled parking lot. There is a lot of people concerned about how it would change the appeal, the curb appeal of the house. So far, I am an artist and I have a very keen aesthetic for making things beautiful. And I would have no deficiencies in that. There has been people concerned a little about headlights in their properties. And if you, in the package I provided in my cover letter, it was one of the things I at my own cost would provide a fence to prevent parking lights or interfering with people's home life on both sides. So I have letters that somehow weren't mentioned. I know when you have your list of people who sent you letters, I know that you also received some letters from people of support, and I don't know why those were left out of your list unless you only list the ones that were of concern. So I don't know what else, if you have any questions for me about what my intent is. There was never an intent for it being a high volume kind of operation. I have a full-time part would be the tattoo, which is what I've been doing for a living for 30 years, which was not in my original application. It sort of has come about as this building has been inactive for all of these years. I adapted my plan to maybe include that, as it seems to be needing much less in their parking area. I only would require 3 or 4 spots to operate the tattoo part of the application. The art gallery would only be open, I was predicting seasonally, like have an event for all of the seasons where people were invited to come, wouldn't be open on a daily basis. There may be 1 or 2 art classes a week, myself, and I have a few friends who are high-class artists and are looking for an outlet to teach. So there may be a couple of classes a week. Other activities were yoga was one thing that we wanted, maybe 1 class a week. People were concerned about how many events were actually going to be taking place, and that would be very minimal. It's really just a community center for, you know, just getting fit and having a place to meet people and share in a happy activity. One person was concerned about whether or not there was alcohol involved, and that was never my intent. This is more of a dance academy, not a bar or an event center where you're going to have weddings or that kind of, it's not that kind of dance hall. I just want to make sure that that's very clear. It's more about instructional use and studio space for dancers like myself who are already trained and just want a space to dance. So you can see it's been fitted with mirrors, and we built a spring floor built specifically for dance. So it would be really unfortunate to not be able to use this space. I think our community would, you know, have an outlet to thrive and grow their creative energy and right here at home, which is something that we've been definitely encouraged to do as of late with our current situation with the world of keeping things closer to home for safety purposes. And so there's just due to COVID as well, there's been little to no activity here over all of that time frame. I also don't want to leave out the dojo. There's a full basement here that is fitted for martial arts, which is another old passion of mine. And I have a friend who wanted to instruct just purely very small, you know, core group of people that he still wants to train with. So that's maybe 1 or 2 classes a week and 5 or 6 attendees per class. So that's what I'm looking for. Is I think the parking would be more than adequate between the 2 buildings. I also want to at least acknowledge that there is parking in front of the building at the church. You are not recognizing it as it is in the road allowance, but there is room for actually 6 cars at this site. So I don't know if you have any questions for me about where to go from now.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cook. We will come upon questions shortly, but I will now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who have registered to ask questions or make comments regarding these applications.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There's one commenter registered to make an oral submission in regards to these applications, Tim Henshaw, and I will just make him a participant here.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor Allen, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Cabral, Councillor Moore, Councillor Hanna, Councillor Mock Chapman, and Township staff. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I would like to preface that we did tour the facility at 2415 Ronald Road and did sign a petition of support, but feel totally misled as the totality of request of the planned use was not presented at that time. We understood that it was only going to be dance studio and art gallery. I represent myself and my wife. We live at 2427 Ronald Road, 2 doors up the street from the properties in question, and we have lived here for 42 years. We are opposed to the rezoning of these properties for the following reasons. First, health and environment. I am assuming that both properties have residential septic systems. Have the guidelines from the Simcoe District Health Unit been adhered to? Have these systems been upgraded to reflect the need for increased capacity for commercial enterprises. The change of occupancy from residential to a commercial use will require system upgrades. Have there been any assurances that this has been done or will be done? Will the system upgrades impact the function of existing neighborhood properties? Are they required to have extra washrooms and laundry facilities for these businesses, including disabled washrooms? If so, how will this impact the environment? The second point that I want to make is safety. This is a residential area. This is a narrow street. There are no sidewalks on this road. When school is in session, children walk on these roads to and from school. The increased traffic from a commercial designation may put children at risk. This is also an agricultural community. Large agricultural equipment regularly uses this road. Vehicles parked on the road bring added risk to the safety of pedestrians and possible damage to the agricultural equipment. As an aside, due to the proximity to the school, this road should be designated a community safety zone and have appropriate reduction in speed limit and signage. And there's currently no speed limit signs on this road. Our third concern is character. The change in zoning, if approved, will mean a change to this quiet residential neighborhood. Will there be a need for additional lighting for the safety of all? The hours of operation, will this alter the quiet, peaceful nature of this neighborhood? One of the proposed uses that we didn't learn until recently was for a tattoo parlor. And traditionally, these type of businesses attract a different clientele, resulting in problems for neighbors and a decline in property value for the surroundings. Then there's existing regulations. When I had a garden shed constructed some 35 years ago, there were rules about proximity of structures to property boundaries. I believe that these are greater in the case of commercial properties. If so, these properties cannot qualify as they do not meet these separation regulations or setbacks. One other concern that I do have is the addition of tattoo parlor to the list of proposed uses. Tattoo parlors create medical waste through their daily operation. Is there any provision for handling medical waste? This includes tattoo needles, bodily fluids, surgical knives, sharps, sterile dressings, and gloves. These all produce biohazard material that are produced with these procedures. Blood and body fluids are vectors of pathogens, notably ones that cause hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and acquired immunodeficiency diseases. Is there going to be proper disposal of medical waste? This is a crucial component. The potential for HIV and hepatitis, and this has the potential to become fatal. Is there going to be regulation for proper disposal of sharps? Are there any provisions for handling this medical waste? And as I said before, this is a biohazard. What precautions are going to be taken? Or is the environment going to be put at risk? Packaging of biomedical waste for offsite disposal must comply with dangerous good regulations for transportation and require separate pickup. And that will result in more traffic, and that's from regulations from the Simcoe County Health Unit. Furthermore, all tattoo parlors must adhere to rules set by occupational health and safety. As for floor plans, they need to make plans for ventilation, adequate lighting, utility sinks, etc. There's a requirement for hazardous waste bins, separate pickup for hazardous waste. And the Simcoe County Health Unit Guide to Prevention, Control, and Personal Setting Service, 3rd edition, July 2019, spells these out. Tattoo parlors require an intermediary level of sanitation, requiring additional chemicals for disinfection. These chemicals will enter the septic system and have the potential to impact groundwater. Who bears the liability if this happens? The township, the county, or will it be the neighbors? And how can, I see the MTO has already signed off on things. How can the MTO say there will be no impact when specialized biohazard waste pickup will be required? Currently, this business has been operating in violation of zoning for 2 years. And there has been a presentation of a petition. There's a presentation of a petition indicating supporters of this project. How many of these signatories to this petition live in this area? Finally, one final concern that I have is about the future uses of these properties if the zoning is changed. If the zoning change is approved, upon approval of zoning change, is this just the start? The local community will have no input or consideration into any of the possible uses. Are there any restrictions into future commercial use? Is there any restriction on hours of operation? Is there the possibility of commercial activity 24/7? This neighborhood is zoned residential and it should stay zoned residential. While some of the activities for young people would be welcome in the community, there are existing facilities such as the school, community hall, and United Church that could accommodate group activities. These facilities all have the zoning, parking requirements, and space available already. This is your chance, Council, and this may be the only chance to protect residential neighborhoods. The precedent that you set with this decision has the potential to disturb and destroy peaceful residential areas township-wide. Please choose wisely.
Thank you, Mr. Henshaw. A lot of questions and points there, and appreciate that. It's a lot for Ms. Cook to address each of those points. I think the recommendation here is that it's going to be referred to staff to make a recommendation and have these questions and points that you raise and that others have raised who have responded that were summarized by the clerk will be addressed as part of that report that's going to come back to council. As we said at the outset, there's not going to be a decision with respect to this tonight, but I do appreciate your questions and points.
I would be happy to submit a written copy of my presentation as well.
Very much to the clerk, if you would, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do members of council have questions or comments regarding these applications for Ms. Cook? And that will give you a chance, Ms. Cook, to say whatever you want to say with respect to the presentation and questions that Mr. Henshaw raised. Council? Councillor Mott Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I have a couple of questions. I have been through an open house that Mrs. Cook had last October, I believe. The church is absolutely beautiful. She's did a really well job, and I have been in the house across the street where they were just renovating at that time. I do like the support of the kids dance, the yoga, the pottery classes. It's not going to be hours of the night. It'd be knowing Mrs. Cook. It'd be probably through the day, maybe till 8 o'clock at night, if that. It does give a purpose of the kids to have something to do. And it does bring some, I guess, people into Minisink. So when we do open after COVID, they'll go to the store, they'll go to the restaurants, things like that. So it does bring some people into Minisink for that. I do have an issue on the parking. So I was thinking, can across the street on the 1215 reduce the parking from 12 down, maybe to help with some of the concerns of the residents. I totally understand where the residents are coming from when you live so close and adjacent. And I know it probably won't be loud because the dance would be mostly of the kids. My other concern was also the septic. I'm not sure where the septic is on lot 2515, whether the parking will be near that. There's, I imagine that the parking can't be near the septic. And if the church was there forever, and I understand where the parking and the schools and the farming equipment, but the church used to have like probably 15 to 20 cars parked on Ronald Road. I'm not sure if anyone ever complained that the parking was on both sides of the road. Not a farm equipment would get through to that. Whether it was a church and no one complained, but I'm not sure if there was ever any complaints from that. And my question is, will the septic or holding tank at the old church be sufficient when if the zoning changes to the general commercial exception? I don't imagine there'll be any more people, but I don't know the zoning part of this holding tank for that area. And that's all I have.
Okay, let's give Ms. Cook a chance to comment on any or all of those, and then we'll address the holding septic question.
Hi. You guys have information with regards to the septic at the church. We put in 2 holding tanks. It is the maximum size that you can have for holding tanks. As of yet, with my very limited use, which really isn't going to increase a lot because there's no high volume water activity happening. I don't have a washing machine on site. I don't have a dishwasher. I don't have a shower. So there's very, other than hand washing stations and 2 toilets, that is all that's going into the holding tanks. As of yet, I've had to pump them at maximum so far twice a year. They have an alarm system when they get close to, when they're reaching capacity, the alarm goes off and I get them pumped out. If there's an increase of that, I'm certainly going to be diligent in getting those, having the company, I have a contract with a company to notice. As for the septic on the site across the road, it is behind the area where I had my proposed parking area. Would be unaffected by the parking. There's also a significant green belt all around the pavement proposed parts where there would be more than sufficient compost kind of material, soil and gardens, which if you did a drive-by, the gardens here are lovely for absorbing any runoff from the pavement. As for the way I handle my business as a tattoo artist, I've been professional for almost 30 years. I am not a child. I am not a, what people term sort of dirty underbelly of society kind of tattoo artist. I am very highly qualified, very skilled, very talented. I encourage any and all of you to look at my work online if you would like. The shop is called Life Itself Tattoos. You can interpret as you see fit. I am inspected. I don't know if you can see this. This is my certificate of inspection. I have been standing by the rules of the way you have to do things and over and above careful my whole career. I do not cut corners. I do not put anything that would harm anyone in my garbage. It is something that you are permitted to do even from your house. It falls under the heading of service industry. So people who operate an accountant or a hair salon or waxing or pedicures or all of those kinds of things are in the same umbrella of care through the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit. And we have to comply to a certain standard. And I would be permitted to do that from even the house next door if it was, so I don't see how they can determine based on the fact that I could buy the house next door and do it out of my house legally. Anywhere in Canada, you can do tattooing from a residential, as long as you're doing it within the criteria of what is safe. So I don't think that that is a fair statement to say that I can't operate. And in all fairness as well, when he said I was misleading, that I didn't include that. When I had my open house, which he said Mr. Renshaw or Henshaw said he attended, you were fully allowed to walk through the part of the building where I had my the intent of having my tattoo parlor. There was no misleading. Other than that was not added until COVID, actually, when I had to shut down. And I've been shut down this year for 6 months. And I have been obeying the laws in that as well. I respect the law. I respect people's right to have a fine quality of home life and have no intent of damaging anyone's community in any negative way. In fact, I feel that this place would have done quite the opposite. And it's unfortunate that that is his opinion of what kind of what I do or what kind of element of society. I did get a complaint letter about parking on, which is sort of about parking on the property. And if you want to talk about the kind of clientele that I have, the day that that letter was received, I got an email and an actual registered mail that someone complained that I intended to use residential property for commercial parking. I had an optician, doctor, an eye doctor was my client, and the girl that I have working for me was her pastor that she was tattooing. So if you don't want those kind of people, high, professionals who are seeking very highly skilled tattoo artists to do their work for them, I don't know what kind of people you're looking for. All of my clients are lovely and wonderful, and I stand by that.
Okay, I will now open it up to councillors to ask further questions, please, or comments. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you to maybe Director Ippolito or another staff member. On Snow Valley Road, we had a dance studio with parking issues about maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and the municipality was able to work with that dance studio in order to create their compliance with our regulations. I guess my question is, if we were able to help that studio utilize their property in order to create compliance, is there an opportunity? I know that when I drop my kids off for dance, it's more of a kiss and ride lane that's required. Parents aren't permitted unless it's a show or their end of year recital, which is often off. I mean, in that instance, we drove to Aurelia for that. So there seems to be more of a community issue with the off-site parking than with the facility and what the facility is offering the community. So my question, I guess, is essentially, are we able to create a compromise on the parking, or is that specifically, is there room for compromise on that, I guess, is what I'm looking to ask.
Okay, actually, I meant to, Director Ippolito came on with respect to the septic question. So I'll ask Director Ippolito to address that. And then if we want to talk further about the parking, possibly that would be planner Lisk. Go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Your Worship. And over to the previous question from Councillor Ma regarding the septic. I can tell you I was involved with the replacement of that sewage system over at 2412 Ronald Road. I can tell you what is there now is a definite upgrade of what was there in the past. And when that system was put in, it was sized up with some additional capacity. However, with any type of sewage works that you have a limit to what it can do. And the applicant would have to stay within the limits of whatever sewage system there is on that property. So it is a holding tank, and it is sized to what it needs to be with the number of people it can be used, and that will have to be maintained. So there's going to have to be maybe a little bit of capacity limits put on that system as well. Across the street, we don't know where that sewage system is, and that was part of my comments on it. And we'll have to take a look to see if that is adequately sized and located in a location where it will not be impacted by the parking. And as you mentioned, Your Worship, I believe the question regarding the parking may be best deferred over to planning to assist with that.
Okay, thank you, Director. So Planner Lisk, let's talk about parking and street parking without sidewalks and snow removal and all those considerations.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just first off, just regarding Deputy Mayor Coughlin's question about the Snow Valley Dance Studio, I'm not aware of that situation. Director Spagnell may have some more history on that one. With regards to the parking requirements, it's stated in the zoning bylaw what the requirements would actually be. And the way we have to look at it is each specific use requires a certain amount of parking. The dance studio and the art studio are based on the capacity of the actual rooms, which Ms. Cook provided that to me. So in total, the amount of parking that is supposed to be required under the zoning bylaw is, I believe, 15 spaces. 15 spaces, and that includes 2 spaces that would be required for the residential use that would be located at 2415 Ronald Road. So that residential building, as it's still going to be used for residential use as well, still needs to have those 2 spaces. What is provided on site by Ms. Cook through her plan is a total of 14 spaces. So she would be just under that 1 space as per the zoning bylaw. If she wishes to reduce that, we'd be, looking at a bit of a justification, I would say, for that reduction. I know Deputy Mayor Coughlin, you mentioned a kiss and ride, like a drop-off area. That's something that Ms. Cook could explore and see if that is something that she's willing to work with to reduce that parking on that one property, the residential lot. I think that's all I could really say at this point. With regards to parking, I think I'll leave it to Ms. Cook about her proposal and if she's willing to reduce that parking or reduce some of the uses on that one residential property. That's an idea too. I know you have a gallery and studio with that residence, so we could look at those specific floor areas and see if there's a way to reduce the requirement under the zoning. I think that concludes my comments on the parking right now. I don't know if Director Spagnell wants to talk about the other uses on Snow Valley or the potential of doing a drive-by area. I think, again, it would be up to Ms. Cook to want to propose that, and then we'd be willing to review it.
Planner list, before I go to Director Spagnell, in the diagram that's presented on 2415, I count 11 spaces that have been shown on the diagram, plus the 2 tenant parking.
There's also, thank you, Mayor Allen. There's, we've included 1 space on the church property, as there's room for 1 employee space that we've also included in that total calculation of 14 spaces. So 11 commercial, the 2 residential, and then the 1 additional commercial on the church property.
Okay, Director Spagnell.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just to clarify, so the dance studio on Snow Valley Road that was referred to by the deputy mayor, that was an ongoing exercise where staff took a look at various options to try to bring a situation where there was deficient parking closer to compliance with the zoning bylaw and efforts to try to allow for dance type uses. In this situation, we're dealing with an institutional use with respect to the church, where, as far as my understanding goes, that there was deficient parking, since the church has been in existence, and parking on the road. So, I mean, there's always the option available to try to strike a balance and try to consider different options to go and mitigate some of those concerns, to try to make an existing situation better, where you might not have full compliance with the zoning bylaw. However, there may be an effort to bring things in closer to compliance with the aspect to try to make things better of an existing situation. So through this process and through the public meeting process, it's always important to obtain the comments of the public. It's always important to obtain questions from council, to respond to that, and to be in a position to better respond to some of the issues that are there to try to better a situation. So there is always the opportunity through this process to revise the application, to try to address some of the concerns that have been raised by the public, but also try to address the needs of the business and the property owner that's applying for the application.
Thank you, Director. Ms. Cook, you referred to a fence on both sides of the property on 2415. In your diagram, I don't see evidence of a fence. Can you tell us more what you contemplate with respect to the fence?
Yes, I don't think it would need to extend into the backyard, as the neighbors recently put in a chain link fence, very new, on the west side. So from where you would see, so just beyond the house itself, back, 3 or 4 feet, I would imagine, maybe, and then to the end of the parking area, either a wooden or stone fence or something where there's impermeable to lights, to whatever height that laws would permit, and still be aesthetically pleasing. And as well I've already discussed, I have a friendship with the other neighbor, Joanne, and we've discussed it would be from like sort of just behind the garage to, there's a very dense tree line. And so really only covering the parking area, because there is an existing fence there, like a farm fence on that side. So something that would be nice to block lights coming through, and the loss of privacy that people may feel if people could see into their home or their property.
Thank you. Councillor Cabral.
There we go. Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just some observations. It's a bit of a unique situation, given that, churches quite often were the hub of the community. They seem to spring up in a lot of the residential areas, but other than the church, this really is a residential area. And the other part that I find a bit conflicting for me is that, in fact, we're dealing with 2 distinct properties, which down the road, either one of them could be sold by themselves and repurposed once again. So it's great to see that the church has been, rejuvenated and basically repurposed. However, when I look at the other side of the road, it's all residential. And in my mind, if I take the church out of the equation completely, I really struggle with rezoning a residential area on the other side of the road to a commercial designation. I struggle with that, because I don't think that would happen anywhere else in Minising without the same circumstances that are existing here with the church being across the road. So there's a couple of things there that do concern me. One, the fact that it's 2 distinct properties. And if it is zoned commercial, which I'm struggling with for the 2412 across the road, and it does get sold, it opens that piece of property up to a litany of other potential uses that would fall under the commercial designation. And that's what concerns me the most about the rezoning there. I have to be honest with you, I do not feel that it's appropriate, just given the fact that it's a residential area. It's got residents on both sides and to the rear. And if I were to take that and transport it over to Plowright or any one of the other roads there, I don't think it would have ever gotten even to this, maybe even to this stage, except for the fact that the church is across the road. And unfortunately, I'm looking at the square around the church, and there simply is not enough land there. I don't know about the rezoning of 2415, but I think for parking, I think you'd really have to look some other way to try and see if you could partner with someone right close to the church to provide some additional spaces for you. But I struggle with 2415 going from residential to commercial zoning.
Okay, thank you. Other comments, councillors? Deputy Mayor Coghlan, then Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And I do concur with Councillor Cabral in that it does seem like a very unique situation, but I do appreciate that Ms. Cook has gone to many lengths to try and appease and confide or come into conformity with the bylaws that exist. We do have a municipal parking lot down the road. There are places that many people attend that don't have parking, that you park in a municipal parking lot or a paid parking lot and walk down to it. I do think that this amenity is beneficial to the municipality and beneficial to the residents of Minisink and the surrounding area. I think that if we take a look at a space that is shared in a dance studio and a yoga studio and the tattoo parlor, these may not operate all at the same time. I think that we need to take a specific look at how many people would be requiring a parking spot in order to be a proprietor of her facility. I don't know that often when I see the parking spots required through the Planning Act, it seems far too many to me. I do know that our council just took into consideration a apartment building on Kerr Street in Elmvale, where we reduced the number of parking spots required in order to come into conformity in that situation as well. So I do hope that we're able to continue to work with Ms. Cook, because I do feel that there should be a compromise available to us. I think that it's an incredible asset to the community, and like you said, your work is renowned, and I think that it does add value to the community. I would like to see us continue to work towards it, but I do agree with Councillor Cabral and the comments that were made that the solution being provided is one that I'm having a hard time getting right behind and excited about, because I do think that it compromises that property across the road. So I don't want to say that I'm not in support of this. I would like to continue to work towards a solution, and continue to look into opportunities to make sure this is viable for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I would like to see maybe if the staff can look at changing the amount of spaces, whether that will change or help meet in the middle with the residents. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate the residents' concerns, and we've had lots of them, and I do support their concerns, and I also support Kathy's concerns too, or Mrs. Cook, sorry, Kathy. So I would like to also just to check to see if there's any compromise, as Deputy Mayor said, with the parking and Councillor Cabral. I also like to know on the township aspect, what happens if 2415 does sell eventually, if Mrs. Cook does sell it down the road, what happens then? Can anyone just come in and open whatever, or do they have to come in to the township and apply for certain rezoning or permit again?
Okay, we'll address that planning question with Planner Lisk.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Ma Chapman. The way that both of the bylaws are drafted, the official plan as well as the rezoning, they're site specific to the uses that Ms. Cook has proposed. So only those uses would be permitted. If anyone else wanted to come in and buy those properties for a different use, they would be looking at a similar process to Mrs. Cook. And just a comment on the parking, reduction in parking. If Mrs. Cook finds that it's appropriate to reduce the parking even further, it's really up to her to propose that to us with some justification of why that parking reduction would be appropriate. And then township staff would be able to review that once we receive it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through to the lady that owns the church. That church has been there. It's got to be well over 100 years. So my question is, all the years of service that church was in existence and being used as a church, where did people park?
You're asking me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Ms. Cook, go ahead. And
I believe on the road. Yep.
So, Mayor Allen,
yes,
so if they've been parking on the road all these years, I think our planning staff, and I think Director Spagnol hit it right on the nail, is to try and compromise and bring something into compliance. This isn't might be exactly what we're looking for, to try and help Ms. Cook out and to move forward with this. Then, like what's wrong with the parking spaces? They're not that many, and it gets people off the road. It's a safe alternative, and moving forward, I think one of the counselors hit it on the nail. Like, I mean, if you were to put some kind of a time frame on this, so that down the road, if the Miss Cook decided to sell it, or if you're there for a length of time, then every, say, 3 years, for example, you renew it, or it automatically expires when you sell the property, then the next person has to come and comply with the township. But I think planning staff has done a pretty good job trying to find some middle ground here to help this lady out. I think this is, you're an artistic person, and I think it's a great asset to the community to enhance artistry like this. So it's nice to be able to try and help you move forward with this. And I don't see what the problem is here with it. So thanks. They can fine tune it a little more, but I think you're on the right track. Thank you.
Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was just going to comment on Perry's, our Councillor Ritchie's comment about the church. I've lived in Minising most of my life, and the church always parked on the road, both sides, 15 to 20 cars deep, I believe. And then also the church did have play groups, because I went to it when my daughter was born. Most people did walk to it, but you'd have maybe 4 or 5 cars for play groups a couple times a week.
Okay, any other comments then, council, before we move on? Okay, Director Spagnol.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And I think just the one point that I'd like to make, once I learn how to, use that sign properly, is also site plan approval is required as well. And through site plan approval, you have the ability to tie both properties into the agreement as it relates to specific uses. So in the event that there was a sale on the property, any prospective purchaser would also have to amend the site plan agreement, and the municipality would have to be notified through that process, because you've got 2 properties that are picked up through the same site plan approval agreement. So there is another mechanism to ensure that the municipality is kept in the loop with respect to the operation of both pieces, because they would both rely upon one another. We have had different situations and different developments where there have been separate properties covered through one site plan agreement, and that has been done to deal with the provision of parking.
Thank you, Director. So if there are no more comments, again, thank you to all who provided comments, both by sending them in and verbally, and to Ms. Cook for responding. The likely motion is going to be referring it to staff, as we'll be dealing with shortly, and to address these in more detail and to look for the possibility of options that then will come back to council. So again, thank you to all that participated in this public meeting with respect to this proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, and for showing interest in this matter. Thank you. Can I have a mover and seconder to adjourn the public meeting, please? Councillor Ma and Councillor Moore, that this public meeting of council held under Section 34 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 P13 is amended for the zoning bylaw amendment application ZB 2021-003 by Gary Bell of Skelton, Brumwell and Associates, Inc. on behalf of White Owl Properties Limited, and for the official plan amendment application and zoning bylaw amendment application OP 2017-003 and ZB 2017-010 by Kathy Cook does now adjourn at 7:50 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Now for direction following the public meeting. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the direction following the public meeting regarding ZB 2021-003 White Owl Properties Limited regarding 2333, 2347, 2365, and 2383 Castle Drive. Mover, Deputy Mayor Coghlan, and seconder, Councillor Cabral. The council, having held a public meeting in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 P13 as amended on a zoning bylaw amendment application ZB 2021-003 by Gary Bell of Skelton, Brumwell and Associates, Inc. on behalf of White Owl Properties Limited, having noted correspondence and input received, direct that the application be referred back to staff. All those in favor? That is carried. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the direction of following the public meeting for OP 2017-003 and ZB 2017-010, Cook, Re 2412 and 2415 Ronald Road, moved by Councillor Ma, seconded by Councillor Ritchie. That councillor, having held a public meeting in accordance with Section 17, 21, and 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 P13 is amended on official plan amendment application OP 2017-003 and zoning bylaw amendment application ZB 217-010 by Kathy Cook, having noted correspondence and input received, direct that the application be referred back to staff. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, moving on to 5.1 action reports regarding Stone Manor Woods subdivision soil and fill exchange agreement. Can I have a motion to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral and Councillor Moore. And we'll start by turning it over to CAO Schmidt for further discussion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. So this evening, before you, you have a request from the developer of Stone Manor Woods subdivision with respect to soil and fill exchange agreement. And so essentially what the developer is requesting is that the township enter into an agreement whereby the developer would be permitted to take some fill from the township lands, which are just north of the hydro corridor, and use that fill for their final phase of their subdivision. In exchange for that fill, the area that would be disturbed would be, there would be surplus topsoil that would be replaced in place of the fill due to surplus topsoil that's currently stockpiled in phase 2C of their subdivision. In addition to this, the developer has indicated that they would be willing to contribute a $100,000 one-time cash contribution to the township should they wish to entertain this agreement. And I'll leave it at that, Mr. Mayor, and if there's any questions, be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Questions, comments by council? Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'd like to congratulate staff. I thought it was well negotiated. I just have a comment for the public record. On page 2 of the report, the second paragraph, the statement that the $100,000 could be used to construct a shed for Works Department to storage or a Recs Department to store equipment. My comment is just, as I said, for the public record, going forward for future council's decision. So
there's no suggestion that it's been approved. And that's simply that pointing out that the Works Department shed on Snow Valley Road at the fire hall, we spent $1 million roughly to enlarge that. So when the fire service moves out of there, the Works Department and Parks and Rec would have an area there to store equipment. And keeping in mind from that location at the Works Department yard to Stone Manor Woods is 5.5 kilometers, and it's 4 to 5 minute drive. It's the same from there to the community hall in Midhurst. It's 4 kilometers and 4.5 minute drive. And if you take the same distance from there to St. Vincent Street in Midhurst, which is basically the center of the town, if you like, it's about 5 kilometers. So the same distance. The Works Department yard is successful in servicing the Midhurst area, and I think it should be able to service Stone Manor Woods. However, I just want to make it clear, I'm not objecting to the idea if it came forward in the future that it was necessary. I just want to be on the public record that while we approve this $100,000 negotiation, we're not approving the Works Department shed being built there at this time.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, council? Okay, the motion is that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding Stone Manor Woods subdivision soil and fill exchange agreement dated April 26, 2021 be received, and that a bylaw authorizing the soil and fill exchange agreement be presented for consideration at the April 26, 2021 meeting of council. All those in favor? That is opposed. That is carried. Next, we move to 5.2 Midhurst External Servicing Agreement and Road Authority Encroachment Agreement Execution Authorization. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Moore and Councillor Ma Chapman. And again, I will turn this to CEO Schmidt just to give some preamble to this, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I'll turn things over to Director Spagnuolo and allow him to speak. And if there's anything else I can fill in, I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Schmidt. Thank you, Mayor Allen. So essentially, the report that's on the agenda tonight for council's consideration deals with the external servicing agreement that is required to bring the utility lands located at the intersection of Snow Valley Road and Wilson Drive. It's on the northeastern side. Essentially, an external servicing agreement is required to allow the developer to start moving forward to building the infrastructure needed to support the first phase of development known as the mixed subdivision. The agreement, I guess to date, the work that's been completed on the mixed subdivision includes tree clearing. It includes a stage 1 agreement, a stage 2 agreement, which allows for construction and the installation of infrastructure. Therefore, it'd only be appropriate at this point in time to start looking at the infrastructure and getting the infrastructure works offsite in place in order to support the mixed subdivision. Essentially, the external servicing agreement that is provided as an appendix to this report addresses the standards that are required to be followed through the environmental assessment process that was completed. In addition to that, it also requires the developer to post the infrastructure security for $27,045,973, and that's for the wastewater treatment plant, the water treatment plant, and an effluent main that's planned to go down Highway 26 and Wilson Drive. Staff is recommending that council provide the mayor and the clerk with authorization to execute the agreement, and also provide the authorization for the mayor and clerk to execute what are considered or what are called road authority encroachment agreements. Those agreements essentially provide the municipality with the ability to service and maintain any infrastructure that is located under any roads that do not fall under the direct jurisdiction of the municipality. Staff is bringing this report forward and seeking these authorizations based on the recommendation of Ainley Group, who has determined that design drawings and detail related to the infrastructure and the servicing has been completed to a point to allow for the execution of the servicing agreement. One key change that I'd like to point to that resulted of discussions regarding the external agreement is just a revision that will have to occur and that will occur with respect to the well monitoring section of the external servicing agreement. This section will be updated to reflect the need to consider water quality and also to better depict what the process would be if there's a dispute about impact of the water system to local wells. That concludes my brief presentation, Mayor Allen. Myself, Mr. Mullen from Ainley Group are here to answer any questions with respect to the external agreement, and staff is recommending that that authorization be provided for the execution of both agreements, or sorry, of the external agreement and the road authority agreements once they have been finalized. Actually, sorry, and on that final note, there is an MTO external encroachment agreement provided for as part of this report. Staff and Ainley Group does not anticipate that the wording for the county agreements will stray very much from those encroachment agreements, which is why we're recommending that authorization be granted to execute those once they are ready and available. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director. Open it up to council, comments, questions. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no objections to the agreement. I just have a question, some clarification, because as the Director Spagnuolo pointed out, the encroachment agreement, but the dot 7 on the first page, it says road authority encroachment agreements are required to identify the responsibilities of the municipality for the construction, maintenance, repair, and relocation of infrastructure within road allowances under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Transport, County of Simcoe. I read that we were responsible for cleaning it, maintaining it, and so on, or does that just mean that we have the authority to go and do it? That's my question.
Director Spagnuolo.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. The municipality, it is the responsibility of the municipality to ensure that the infrastructure is constructed as per the EA design. It is also the responsibility of the municipality to maintain the infrastructure as well.
Follow on.
Follow up. How do we do that if whoever's hired by the developer to go and do this infrastructure doesn't do the job properly? How do we ensure that it gets done? Do we have to go and take on the job of doing it, or is there some authority that you have or the township would have to force the person that did it to make sure it's done properly?
Director.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and I can try to answer that, and then if I err, like we can rely on Mr. Mullen to fill in the gaps. It's my understanding that first of all, with respect to the securities that are required, that the municipality has the ability to go in and complete the work as needed with those monies if it is needed. On top of that, there is ongoing supervision of the infrastructure that is going to be installed by Ainley Group or by experts that would be contracted out by Ainley Group. So there has to be ongoing supervision of the works to make sure that it is being completed as per the EA design. And the cost associated with that supervision would be borne by the developers to ensure that the infrastructure is being constructed as per the detailed designs.
Any follow on, Mr. Mullen?
Yeah, yes, Your Worship. Just further to Director Spagnuolo and through to Councillor Hannah. Basically, these works are not unlike the works within a particular subdivision. So the drawings are prepared by the developer's engineer. They go through an extensive review process, both by ourselves, by some township staff, and by the Ontario Clean Water Agency. And when the drawings then get to a point whereby we're comfortable, which is where we are now, the developer then moves forward to construct the works. And similarly, we will be attending bi-weekly meetings and inspections of that works as it's getting constructed throughout the 8 to 10 month period of construction to ensure, that they are constructed in accordance with all township standards. And then at the very end, prior to acceptance of the works, there's a number of tests are completed both on these effluent mains to ensure that they are in accordance with all township standards and provincial standards prior to you actually taking them on. And then further to that, again, the last piece of the puzzle, there's even a 2-year maintenance period, not unlike your subdivision works, whereby the developer is fully responsible for any deficiencies that arise during that 2-year period, and there's multiple inspections done again. So we are confident that not unlike your subdivision works, that at the end of that period of time, the works are acceptable prior to you actually assuming, which would be then, at least 2 years down the road and possibly 3 years, allowing for the initial construction.
All on, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you. I'm satisfied that Mr. Mullen and Mr. Spagno could see that it's happening, working with the developer, but I just found it interesting that the Ministry of Transport and the County of Simcoe were putting the responsibility on to us being the lower tiered township. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, council? Okay, the motion reads that the report from the Director of Planning Services regarding Midhurst External Servicing Agreement execution authorization dated April 26, 2021 be received, and that a bylaw be presented to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the Midhurst External Servicing Agreement substantially in accordance with the agreement attached as Appendix A, Midhurst External Servicing Agreement, which is to be registered against the subject lands, utility lands, and mixed subdivision to permit the construction of external services, and that the required road authority encroachment agreements for infrastructure to be constructed within the Ministry of Transportation and County of Simcoe road allowances be brought forward to the May 5th, 2021 regular meeting of council for consideration. All those in favor? It is carried. We're at 6.1, approval of bylaws. Can I have a mover and seconder for the approval of bylaws, please? Councillor Ritchie and Deputy Mayor Coughlin, that the bylaws listed herein be signed and sealed by the Mayor and Clerk, 2021-046 Soil and Fill Exchange and Haul Road Agreement, Stone Manor Woods Holding Corp., and 2021-047 External Works Agreement, 175-7704 and 175-5575 Ontario Inc. All those in favor? Is carried. Confirmatory bylaw, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Moore and Councillor Ma Chapman, that the bylaw 2021-045 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the special meeting held on April 26, 2021, listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. And adjournment, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Cabral, that the special meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 8:08 p.m. to meet again in the regular meeting on May 5th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, council, and good night.
Good night.